Now joining us now from Munich is Christian Leuprecht, a security expert from Canada's Royal Military College. Good to speak to you today, Christian. The French Justice Minister Christian Leuprecht resigned over the proposed law to strip dual nationals of their French citizenship. Just how feasible is this as a law to be brought in by the French?
Well, we have precedent for this legislation from both the UK and from Canada, for instance. But in practice, stripping individuals of their citizenship is going to be difficult because you can revoke the document, but which country is likely to take back their own citizen who is suspected of terrorist activity or has had their citizenship revoked? And we know this, for instance, with regards to asylum seekers, of just how difficult it is to return asylum seekers whose applications have been denied, even to friendly countries such as Morocco or Algeria, for instance. So in that sense, I think this is more a symbolic deterrent measure than a measure that will actually be able to have a considerable sort of effect in terms of removing individuals from France.
And Christian, you mentioned the word deterrent. These measures in France and across Europe are designed to try and deter people from coming. Do you think they'll be effective?
Well, so we have a large, significant minority of people who have radical sympathies or sympathies for violent sort of extremist ideologies, but very few of them actually move to violence, which suggests that, as is inherent in human nature, it's very difficult for people to kill others. And so I think given that relatively few people move to violence, any measure in a broad toolkit, if we can broaden that toolkit to even discourage one individual who might be thinking about moving to violence from actually doing so, I think we've already gained a fair bit in terms of deterrence. And really, in terms of the effect, as I say, of this law, simply putting it in place and having it as a deterrent measure as part of a much broader toolkit is important, because it becomes part of sort of the administrative effort to get out ahead of the game and take preemptive action, in particular, in this case, try to deter individuals from moving to violence.
Now, of course, one of the main problems with the Paris attackers was that most of them were homegrown and self-radicalized. How do security forces actually tackle that kind of radicalization?
So we got to make sure we don't draw too close a relationship between radicalization and violence, because few of the people who are, as I mentioned, who've been radicalized actually moved to violence, and a number of the people who engage in violence hadn't previously been radicalized and engage in violence for any number of other reasons. And so I think the relationship is much more tenuous than we believe it to be. And this is partially what makes it so difficult for security forces, because in a free and democratic society, it's not illegal to harbor thoughts that might counter to the mainstream. What is illegal is to engage in criminal acts and to harm others' lives. And so the challenge then is a target-rich environment of individuals who might exhibit propensities in terms of their behavior of moving to violence, but with insufficient evidence to actually apprehend these individuals. And at the same time, a rule of law democratic state that does impose considerable thresholds in terms of evidence that needs to be met in order to detain someone. And so these measures, for instance, such as also revoking someone's passport so they can't travel abroad, is an administrative measure. It's meant to lower the threshold of the burden of evidence required to try to preempt.
Well, Christian, I would have to leave it there. Sorry, the line to you is not the best, but thank you very much for joining us. Christian Leuprecht there in Munich.